Welcome. Let's talk about conics. Where do they get their name? Now, if you're to take cones and slice them, you're going to get different shapes. You get parabola. If you go straight across, you get circle. A little diagonal gives you an ellipse, and hyperbola, like so. Today we're going to focus on the circle. First, let's review concentric circles. Concentric circles have the same center, different radii. Okay, example. Same center, different radii. Dartboard, same center, different radii. Now the standard form of the equation of a circle. Now for the standard form of the equation of a circle. That looks like this. You may recall from geometry, x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. hk is the center. The xy's represent any xy around the circle itself. So if we were to look at this graph, let's figure out the equation. Okay, well, we have a center of 2, -1, and we have a radius of 3. So if our center is 2, -1, and our radius is 3, we can get a formula. We get the equation of x minus 2 squared plus y minus a minus 1, which is plus 1 squared, equals your radius squared. Now the general form of the equation of a circle looks like this. We have x squared plus y squared plus dx plus ey plus f equals 0. This d, e, and f are just coefficients. And recall when you have just an x squared or a y squared, you have a parabola. When you have the sum of both of them squared, you have either a circle or an ellipse. You have a closed loop. When these coefficients are the same, you have a circle. When these coefficients are different, you have an ellipse. The reason being, one is growing faster than the other. Here, they're both growing at the same rate. All right, now looking at this general form is not as easy to identify the center and the radius. So, here's our plan of attack when asked to do so. We're going to take the general form and we're going to complete the square. When you do that, it brings you to the standard form. So let's do that. Alright, so here's our directions. We are going to find the center and the radius for this problem right here. Oops. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to combine our x terms. I have an x squared, not combine, get them together. We have x squared plus 8x, and we're going to complete the square. I have y squared minus a 2y, and we need to complete the square there also because we have a y squared. And you don't have to do this, but I like to move my constant over to the right, so I'm going to do so. -13. Let's complete the square on the x's. Now, how do we do that? You take half of your b coefficient and square it. Our b coefficient here is 8. So half of 8 is 4, which gives you a positive 16, which means we're going to add 16 right there. Don't forget, this is an equation. If you're adding 16 to the left, do not forget to add it to the right. All right, now for the y's. Well, our b is -2. So half of -2 is -1, which brings us to a positive 1, which means we're going to add 1 right there. And again, don't forget it's an equation, add 1 to the right. All right, let's see what we got here. Let's change it to, let's try green. Okay, so we have x, and what do we add here? Well, if you recall, we're going to take what multiplies to give you 16, but also adds up to be 8. Now, in this case, it's fairly easy. 4 times 4 gives you 16. 4 plus 4 gives you 8. For the y's, well, let's see. We have 1 and -2, so a -1 times a -1 is 1, and -1 plus -1 is 2, so that's what we want right there. Let's add up this other side here. We have 16 minus 13 is 3. 3 plus 1 is 4. All right, now this one wasn't too bad, but if you have any fractions in this part right here, knowing this little trick is going to save you a lot of time. Instead of trying to figure out what do you multiply and add? Whatever half of b is what goes in here. Okay, so if you have a fraction there and you're taking half of the fraction, that half of the fraction goes there, and that half of the fraction goes there. Just easy to remember when you have fractions. Okay, we're done. So now, if you notice, we have, don't forget, this is not 4, 1. This really, whoops, I'm sorry, right there. This really is x minus a minus 4, right? Because we have, originally, we had this. Wait, let me just, we had, what am I trying to do here? We got x minus h squared. So if you have x minus a minus 4, then your h is negative 4. Okay, so our center, our x value is negative, or h value is negative 4, and our k value is 1. There's our center. The radius, don't forget it's not 4, it's 2, because this value right here equals r squared, not r. Okay, so when you square root it, you get 2. Okay, let's make this a little bit smaller. And look at this right here. Let's graph it. Okay, so our radius is negative 4, 1. So negative 4, 1. Whoops, hold on one second. Right around there. And our radius is 2. Well, if you notice, we have 2 that away and 2 that away, and there's your 2, and we can draw a circle. Any 3 non-collinear points will give you a unique circle. Collinear, on the same line, therefore non-collinear means not on the same line. Regarding the spelling, either is accepted. Okay, 1 L or 2 L's. Alright, so visually what we're talking about is if I just randomly gave you, I don't know, say a point, oops, let me do that, say a point here and a point there and a point there, well, there's going to be some unique circle going through those 3 points. Okay? Alright, let's do this problem here. So we're going to try to find the center and radius of a circle passing through those 3 points. Okay, how do we do that? Well, let's start with the general equation, general form of the equation, okay, which is right there. We talked about that earlier. Now, here we know what our x's and y's are. The x's and y's are given to us right here. So we're going to plug them in, and the variables are going to be d, e, and f. And those we don't know. So we have this point, we have 0, 4, 3, 5, and 7, 3. Let's plug in what we know. We have 0 squared. We have 4 squared. We don't know d, but we have x is 0, so I'm going to call that 0d. We don't know e, but we know y is 4, so that's 4e. And we don't know f. 3 squared. 5 squared. X is 3, so we have 3d. Y is 5, so we have 5e. We don't know f equals 0. Okay, 7 squared. 3 squared. 7d. Y is 3, so we have 3e. We don't know f equals 0. Alright, now the plan of attack here is we're going to take this information and we're going to create a matrix with it. Now what I want to do first though is I'm going to take my values, my constants, and move them over there. Same thing over here and same thing over here. We're going to move them over to the other side like we did earlier. So let's do that. When we do that, let me go here, red. What that's going to give us now is a 0. Now again, remember with matrices, you have a D column, we're going to have an E column, and an F column, and that is going to equal our answer column, which is the constant. Okay, so let's fill in this. We have 0D, we have 4E, we have 1F equals, now when I move this over, that's going to become a negative 16. When we move that over, it becomes negative. Okay, so just keep that in mind. So that's a negative 16. Oops, we don't need that. And then the next one, we have a 3D. we have a 5e, and we have a 1f, and when you add 9 and 25, you get 34. Move it over, you get negative 34. 7d, 3e, 1f, this right here equals 58, so when we move it over, we get negative 58. Okay, now right there is our matrix. If you recall earlier in the year, I showed you the RREF function. Reduced row echelon form. If you don't recall how to get there, okay, it's not the best lighting, but when you go to your matrix function, you go to your math, and then here, B, RREF. Don't choose REF, you want reduced row echelon form. Okay? And when you do that, you're going to get a matrix that looks like this. We have 1, 0, 0, hold on one second, what does that come out to be? Negative 6, 0, 1, 0, 0, and then 0, 0, 1, negative 16. Now recall what we're looking at here. This is your D column, this is your E column, this is your F column, and this equals the answer column. So we have 1D plus 0E plus 0F equals negative 6. 0 times anything goes away, you're left with D equals negative 6. Follow the same pattern, you're going to get E equals 0, and you're going to get F equals negative 16. Okay, so let me write that down here. So we now, hold on, let me move that up there and make that smaller. See, so now we know that D equals negative 6, E equals 0, and F equals negative 16. Okay, getting a little crazy here. Let me delete some things. And let's get rid of this too. Oops. Yep, we don't need that guy. All right. Now with this, we're going to go back to our general form, and we're going to plug in what we now know. We now know D, E, and F. So that gives us x squared plus y squared. D is negative 6, so we now have a negative 6D. I'm sorry, negative 6x. E is 0, so we have a 0y, and F is negative 16. Okay. All right, let's get rid of that one now, since we have that, and we don't need this. Okay. Oops. Okay. Now, guess what we're going to do? We're going to complete the square. So, we have x squared plus, I'm sorry, negative 6x minus 6x plus something, y squared plus 0y plus something equals, now remember, I'm going to take my constant that we had here and do the same thing. I'm going to move it over, so that gives us a positive 16 over here. All right, let's complete the square. We have b is negative 6, so half of negative 6 is negative 3. And if you square that, you get a positive 9. So let's put a positive 9 right there. And don't forget it's an equation. Add it over there too. For the y, our b coefficient is 0, so half of 0 is 0. And if you square it, you still get 0. Okay, so you don't really have to, but I'm going to just add 0 there. Just be consistent. Now if we complete the square, and that gives us a 25 on the right. Recall what I said earlier, half of b is what goes here. So what we have is half of b is negative 3. And half of 0 is still 0. It doesn't matter if you do plus or minus 0, it's the same thing. And we're done. We have our answer. We now know that our center, whoops, wrong thing. We have center is going to be 3, 0. And the radius is the square root of 25, which is 5. Okay, and then you're able to do something like that and graph it. Let's take a look at your outline here. Okay, today we did the circle. And I want you to be ready, review your notes, and be ready to come into school tomorrow. And we're going to do page 530 in class. and work on those problems. Okay? See you then.